Hello everyone, I am the Enforcer, and welcome to the breaking news. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and support us on Patreon, link in the description below. Today's breaking news is that within the Kursk Oblast, we have been able to hear that Ukrainian forces have continued to advance around the area of Kromskie Bykie, and not only that, more Russian prisoners have been taken over the very short period of time in between yesterday's stream and today. We were able to hear that Ukrainian forces, according to reports, have made it to Sabotage, several miles west of the town of Kromskie Bykie, and once again showing that Russian forces in this area largely are collapsing, and this seems to be the weakest front of all fronts at the moment as far as Russian resistance is concerned. We were able to see video footage out of this area that as the Russians had withdrawn, they abandoned once again another high-end main battle tank, at least for the Russian Federation. Instead of it being a T-80 BVM like normal, this time it was actually a T-90M.
Ага, Т-90, блядь. Ага. От, сука, підерки, блядь.
А оце все відтепловізаційна штука.
Once again, in full running order. Moving on into the rest of the pictures and evidence that we have of this T-90M, we were able to see a picture right here. Once again, an improvised cope cage being built on top of the T-90M, a fairly normal battlefield edition at this point. And we can also see the inside of the T-90M's turret. We believe that this is either the gunner or the commander's position. I can't really tell because we can't really see where the breach is inside the tank. To be honest, I'm assuming it's mostly the commander's position because we are seeing that the side of the turret is off to the right, meaning that this is most likely the commander's position instead of the gunner, who's on the left side of the turret. We also get to see this interesting little plushie that was attached to a part of one of the periscopes. Pretty interesting note. Apparently this crew had a little bit of a personality, but not enough bravery to stake around or get their tank out of the situation. And so now this T-90M is in control of the Ukrainian armed forces, and once again confirming the Ukrainian advance towards the area of Sabotage, at least at the moment. We also got additional news from the area at Koronivo, showing that more Russian prisoners have been taken in firefights occurring around the town of Koronivo. We can see the footage right here, once again confirming a massive prisoners being taken. It looks like it's a little bit less than 100, so about an entire company of Russian soldiers giving up and surrendering in this one clip right here, and once again confirming to us that the morale of these troops is incredibly low. From what we understand, Russian forces that are being moved into this area are most likely conscript forces, and for that reason, their morale is exceedingly low. The Ukrainians appear to be engaging them in firefights and conducting possibly some quick maneuvers that make it seem as though the Russian forces are being overrun, and then the Russians give up practically on the spot. From what we understand, these Russians are not surrendering because they're being encircled. They're simply surrendering because they no longer really have the will to fight at all, and it seems as though there isn't really a lot of a will to fight really anywhere at this point within most of the Kursk offensive, at least on the Russian side. However, within the city of Kursk, we did get to hear some fairly interesting information, and it seems as though these troops may just have low morale, possibly because they're getting beaten down pretty badly, and things just keep going worse for them. As we have heard that Russia is withdrawing troops from all across Ukraine and moving them into Kursk. This is according to Nexta. Of course, the picture, this is largely a fill-in, but according to the Wall Street Journal, Russia withdraws part of its troops from Ukraine to protect the Kursk region from the armed forces of Ukraine offensive. And according to a journalist, on the 13th of August, Ukraine also sent reinforcements to strengthen its positions in the Kursk region. That's once again showing that this is becoming a major battlefield, and it's also showing that the Russian Federation is putting some very serious concern into what is happening up in this area. It is once again leading us to believe that the Ukrainians are doing incredibly well, at least at the moment. They will most likely start to run into heavier resistance in about a week or a week and a half once a large enough amount of brigades from the Russian side start to arrive in the area. But at the moment, it doesn't really seem that that's going to be happening anytime soon, and it seems that the Ukrainians are continuing to have the upper hand in this offensive, and the Russians are desperately trying to play catch-up and make sure that they are able to try and find some way to eventually stop the Ukrainian advance from reaching Kurchatov and the city of Kursk itself. But moving on out of that, and speaking a little bit about possible border incursions into unfriendly countries to the west in Ukraine, we did get to hear that today Belarus threatened the use of nuclear weapons on their own, specifically because they were saying if they were invaded, they'd nuke whoever's invading them. This is one of those interesting things that shows us that the Belarusian government is fairly weak, because Lukashenko said in a direct quote, Belarus will use nuclear weapons if the enemy crosses the border of the Union State, Belarus, and Russia. There will be no red lines. The answer will be instant, at least according to Lukashenko. This once again corroborates the fact that we talked about months ago that the Belarusians have been given nuclear weapons and apparently have the ability to use them on their own without approval from the Russians, and also it's giving us an idea that the Belarusian government is incredibly fragile. If there was an invasion to occur in Belarus, the central government may not survive that long. It may actually be seen that a coup begins immediately within the central government that would overthrow Lukashenko, and for that reason, an immediate nuclear attack would happen on whoever's attacking the Belarusian government and the Republic of Belarus as a whole. And then right after Lukashenko made that statement, he then said that he wants negotiations. This guy was kind of hitting every single base today, but Lukashenko then said right after that, well, let's sit down at the negotiating table and stop this fight. Neither Ukrainians, nor Russians, nor Belarusians need it. And it seems as though the president of Belarus, the dictator of Belarus for the large part, Lukashenko, is starting to show that the Belarusian government is pretty weak. They're threatening a direct nuclear response to anyone who even tries to invade them, once again showing that the central government has to be fairly weak. And then on top of that, they're also saying that they need to find a peaceful solution to this conflict immediately. All of this is showing us that right now Lukashenko's government is in a very precarious position inside of Belarus. It probably doesn't have a large amount of government or really public backing for that matter, and so Lukashenko is desperately grasping at straws to try and see if he can find a way to maintain his grip on power and make sure that the Belarusian government doesn't end up going to the wayside anytime here in the near future. Meanwhile, it does appear that the Russian military is losing the ability to stop themselves from going to the wayside anytime here soon, as near to the area of Irkutsk, we got to hear today that a TU-22M3 strategic bomber, one of the largest and most commonly used ones in the Russian Air Force, ended up crashing today in the Irkutsk region of the Russian Federation. Here's one of the clips showing the crash.
Это что такое? Че, реально?
And that thing turned into a fireball as it descends to the ground quite rapidly. And we see the explosion of the Tu-22 when it hits the ground.
Че, реально самолет?
And that's the end of that clip right there, but moving on to our next one, we also got to see more footage of the Tu-22's crash. Here's the same clip. So we're going to be skipping that one. We're going to be going to this one, which shows the burning pile on the ground. But that's the end of the clip right there. And then finally, our third clip of the Tu-22M3 crash right here. This one shows the Tu-22 right as it exploded on impact with the ground.
Нихуя взрыв был.
О, сука. Хуя оглушила.
Нихуя
Как
оглушил.
раз волна нахуй сюда.
Нихуя. Я испугалась.
Никто бы рядом был там.
А там уже тачка прямо подъезжала.
Но
Ебать, нифига взрыв.
какие там если пожарные, да, там что такое.
And that's the end of the clip right there, but once again, showing from every possible angle that we could find, the crash of the Tu-22M3 in the area around Irkutsk. From what we can understand at this moment, information-wise, about the crash of this Tu-22M3, it is being understood that it was some sort of a mechanical failure that led to the crash. The pilots of the Tu-22M3 were able to eject from the cockpit. Both pilots survived, but apparently the aircraft ran into an unavoidable issue that led to it spinning out of control, the pilots ejecting, and then the Tu-22 crashing on the ground. It may have been some sort of an engine explosion or an engine failure, considering that we saw a fireball coming from the Tu-22 as it was spiraling towards the ground, but the exact answer at this moment is still unknown. But nevertheless, it is once again showing us that the Russian Federation is running into a larger and more pressing number of issues with their aging aircraft fleet and their lack of an ability to be able to get any viable parts for these aircraft due to Western sanctions and due to the fact that most of the aviation industry in Russia is incredibly small and not able to produce replacement parts in the large and numerous numbers that are required for these aircraft. Meanwhile, in the city of Moscow, things were also not going well in this area as well, down near Lyubertsy, as we were able to see that a massive fire began to break out in Moscow today on one of the larger factories within this area. We can see one of the clips right here. And showing you all a little bit more of what we got out of the fire, we can see another clip. And finally, we can see the last picture here showing the fire that was occurring in this area. According to the information that we have, the fire broke out at the Otomsky Agricultural Engineering Plant in Lyubertsy in the Moscow region. According to the information we have, it spread to an area of 2,000 square meters. That's approximately about 7,000 square feet of floor area that's burned in this building. And the fire had not been extinguished at the time of this report, which was a little bit earlier on in this morning, so we don't know a lot of information about how it's gone so far. But we did get to see a backup clip that we had here of the major fire that you can see right here as well. That's the end of that clip, but still, it seems as though there was some kind of a pro-Ukrainian partisan attack or sabotage attack inside of Moscow today that led to this kind of damage. We're still trying to find out the cause of this fire. There was also another fire that happened in Moscow today that was a little bit more minor, so we didn't end up covering it in the short war video, but it seems as though there were a large amount of fires breaking out in Moscow today, and these may be the pro-Ukrainian partisan attacks that the Russians are looking around for. It may even be special forces infiltration teams from the Ukrainians that made it into Kursk a while ago, and some of them have finally made it to Moscow and are beginning to operate and try and sabotage anything of value within the city of Moscow. But nevertheless, that is all of the breaking news that we have inside of Russia. And moving on down into northern Israel, we did get to see that a large Hezbollah barrage was conducted once again today into northern Israel near the Upper Galilee area. The Iron Dome was filmed shooting down a large number of these rockets. Once again, showing tensions are high in the area, but there's really nothing more to get out of this. We don't know when the Iranians are going to attack, if they ever will, at this point, but we can see that Hezbollah is continuing on their barrage, and the Iron Dome is continuing to try and intercept all of the incoming rockets from Hezbollah forces. Still, once again, showing the high tensions, but at the same time, we don't know when an attack will ever actually begin. A full-scale attack from Iran, that is. But with that, that is all of the breaking news that we have today. I've got to thank each and every one of y'all so much once again for watching. And if y'all have enjoyed, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And make sure to support us on Patreon. Link in the description below. We got to give a huge shout out to all of our patrons who are currently supporting us on Patreon. They help to make these video projects a reality each and every day, and we owe them a massive debt of gratitude and a huge thanks for helping this channel, helping these videos specifically to keep on being possible. And so a huge thanks to everyone once again for watching, and I will see you all in the next